This is episode number 30 with Charlie Brenneman.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 30 today, and I'm really excited to be speaking to Charlie Brenneman. Now, in case you haven't heard of Charlie before, Charlie is really one inspiring guy. Having grown up doing wrestling throughout school, Charlie decided that his gift to the world was to become a high school Spanish teacher. However, one day out of the blue, he had this voice in his head telling him that he wanted to become a fighter. Now, this kickstarted a really successful MMA career, which saw Charlie reaching as high as 7th in the world rankings and also getting into UFC. Fast forward to today, and Charlie now uses these skills, strategies, and mindset he learned as a fighter in his new career as a speaker and mentor to help others smash their self-doubt, overcome their fears, and achieve their goals. If you've started to feel like you're settling in your comfort zone and setting yourself up for future regrets in your life, then this episode is for you. In this episode, we cover how Charlie went from being a Spanish teacher to a UFC fighter, why we settle in life so easily, how to start working towards a big goal, the interesting pre-fight voices in a fighter's mind, and why your goals are the least important part of the process. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/030. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's go hang out with Charlie. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm speaking to Charlie Brenneman. Charlie, thanks for coming to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, now we were chatting a bit before the call about how I came across you and what you're doing. And I actually interviewed Brian Drury for one of my earlier episodes. And I said to him, who do you think I should get on? Who would you recommend me interviewing? And he said, you've got to get on this guy, Charlie. He interviewed you for his podcast. And I won't give away too many secrets right now. But for people listening, why don't you tell us a bit about who is Charlie Brenneman and your quarter life story?
Yeah, it's an interesting story and one that sometimes I look back and I think, what the heck, is that really me? Is that my life? But I grew up, I'll give you a little bit on my foundation and then where that foundation took me. But I grew up, small town in Pennsylvania here in the U.S. And, I had a great upbringing, had a great family, and I started the sport of wrestling very early on. And the sport of wrestling, if you're not familiar with it, is like, it's insane. I mean, it's super hard. It's super, creates discipline and mental toughness. It's just it's tough, but it's extremely valuable in life. And then that mindset led me to college wrestling. And then from college wrestling afterwards, I became a Spanish teacher. And I thought at that time, this is where I want to be. This is my life's work. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to teach Spanish and coach wrestling. But then, you talk about in your podcast, you talk about, helping people realize their journey and make the most of their lives and to create the life they actually want. Well, I had this out of the blue one day, I had this thought that, hey man, maybe I think I want to be a professional fighter. And it was, I was not a fighter. I didn't like to fight. I had a skill set that was wrestling. And I thought, that using my skill set, using my assets, I think I can make that happen. And then from that day forward, I structured my life such that I became a professional fighter. I became a UFC fighter. And at one point I was ranked number 7 in the world. And it was completely unexpected, but it was systematic. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of building relationships, a lot of, dedication, discipline, etc. And at the end of the day, today, I'm sitting here and I'm embarking on a new phase of my career, which is speaking and mentoring.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. Two crazy things about that is the one, like you suddenly had this vision or this voice that like, I want to be a fighter. And then two, like dedicating the rest, well, not the rest of your life, but like the near future to that and just running with it based on this voice you heard. Something I wanted to go back to, though, was when you decided to become a Spanish teacher, was it something that you really wanted to do, or was it like kind of a more realistic sort of option? And I put realistic in quotation marks there.
Yeah, I understand that. My philosophy on life and my mindset is that it's a continual evolution. It's continual growth. It's continual, what's next? How can I get better? What can I learn? And I wasn't always that way. So no, I looked at teaching. I looked at being a Spanish teacher as that is my life's work. That's what I want to do. And I had no visions of grandeur. I had no visions of conquering the world or influencing people. I thought, no, I want to be a teacher and I want to coach. And then when I got there and started to travel more and started to honestly, I started reading, and reading kind of opened my eyes up, opened my mind up. And then little by little, I started to think, maybe I have more to offer. Maybe I can influence more people by pursuing this other route.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, how can you best serve? And I love what you were saying about, it's a continual process and a journey. I interviewed Jenny Blake in a previous episode, and she said it was kind of controversial. She said there's no such thing as a quarter life crisis, but because it's always like it always comes back, and we always have to grow and take that next step. So yeah, it's really cool that
Absolutely.
you said that too. Now, in your about page, you mentioned, you stopped being you. I wonder if you could, after you graduated college, I wonder if you could just talk us through what that was like.
Yeah. So for me, Charlie Brenneman, growing up, it was goal setting. It was pursuing goals. It was discipline. It was sacrifice. It was hard work, perseverance. That was me. Okay, so those traits, those characteristics are what described me from 8 years old up until 23 years old. And then when I stopped wrestling at 23 years old and I went back to my hometown and I started teaching and coaching, I wasn't living those traits. I didn't have any goals. I wasn't sacrificing anything. I wasn't disciplined. I wasn't really going through, I don't want to say controversy, but I didn't really have many challenges. And at first it was like a vacation. You take a vacation from work, you think this is the best thing ever. But then after a certain period of time, I started to realize, like, wait a minute, those things that are difficult, that sacrifice, discipline, perseverance, though they're difficult, they make me. And that's when I feel happy, is when I'm experiencing and living those traits. So when I said that I stopped being me, that's what I meant. I was now lazy. I now didn't sacrifice. I didn't have any discipline. I didn't watch what I ate. I wasn't working out as much. And at the end of the day, when I shut my eyes to go to bed, I felt discontent.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. That's really heavy. So, I mean, this isn't at all a unique thing. Like, it's probably one of the things we see the most is people just settling, and like not wanting to push or work towards something bigger. Why do you think it is so common that people just settle so easily?
Because it's difficult, and we like comfort. We're a creature biologically. We're a creature of habit, and our brain searches for the least resistance. And that's how our brain works. It looks for habits. It looks for memory and doing things without thinking. And if you go to the mall, you take the shortest route to the mall. If you want to park, you park closest to the store. That's just a habit. So biologically, I think that we, as a people, I'm not going to say everybody, but generally, we don't like resistance, and settling is a way to avoid resistance. Because when you stop pursuing, when you stop setting goals, when you stop reaching for, extraordinary things, it then becomes easier. And then it becomes easier and less, it becomes less stressful to have regret, but put that regret in the closet and lock the closet, than to actually pursue what you truly want to pursue. So it's a path of least resistance, I think.
Cool. So, Charlie, one of the things I often tell clients and just other listeners and friends of mine is like, if there's something you want to work towards, just identify the tiniest first small step that you can take and start taking that step. So I'm curious to find out, like, once you decided you were going to be a fighter from a teacher, what did that process look like? How did you get started in doing that?
Yeah, that's an awesome point that you make, and it's so true. One of the things that I say often is action begets action. It's like you start with a little snowball, just a little whatever, a little tennis ball sized snowball, and start rolling it, and soon it turns into an avalanche. So for me, literally, I mean, I get a lot of emails, a lot of Facebook, a lot of social media saying, "I want to be a UFC fighter. What should I do?" And people, when they send that, I think most of the time they're looking for a magic pill. They're looking for a magic thing. But the truth is, what did I do? Well, I said I want to be a fighter. So I looked up, a small gym in my town, a jiu-jitsu gym, and I called them. I made contact and say I'd like to come do jiu-jitsu. When are classes? So I started going to classes Saturday mornings, some nights during the evening. And then from there, I met a contact who said, "Hey, there's other great coaches about 45 minutes away." I called them. I said, "Hey, I'd like to come train with you. Can I?" "Sure, come along." From them, it went to the next step and then the next step. And it was just a continually building process. But it's tough to get started, but once you get started, getting started is the hardest part. And then once you get started, it becomes easier because you build and build and build. And one thing that I've learned, for everyone listening, that super important, and I lived it on one side and now I'm living it on the other side. When you show sincere desire and sincere interest and sincere work ethic, people who are much more successful than you and beyond where you are, maybe where you want to be, they feel compelled to help you because they see a part of themselves in you. And now on the other side of it, when I have people message me or contact me, I have like these little like benchmarks, these little tests that if they pass, I'll give my time. Most of the time I won't even ask for money. It's just, I want to help you because I see me in you.
Yeah, man, that's huge. I love that. I'm curious to find out, what did people think when you told them you're going to become a fighter and not an English teacher anymore? Yeah, a Spanish teacher anymore.
That I was absolutely crazy. Literally that I was crazy. And, I wrote a book. My book is called Driven, My Unlikely Journey from Classroom to Cage. And the reason I wrote the book is because of that, exactly what you asked. When I decided to leave, and then for the 10 years of my career, I got so many questions like, "What the heck are you thinking? Why you're an idiot. You left a paycheck, you left insurance to fight in a cage. That's the dumbest thing." I heard everything. But people were also curious. What's it like? What do you think? How much money do you make? What's this guy like? What's your worst injury? So I wrote it all in a book. But that question, the questions, the concern, the what the heck from my community, it was insane. And actually, it's funny, my parents probably got it more than I did. People going, avoiding me and saying to my parents, "What is he doing?" And then they'd come to me and say, "So-and-so asked, blah, blah, blah." So it was pretty intense, man.
I suppose you just got to keep your eyes on what you're working towards.
Pretty much, because if you start listening to everyone else, then it creates doubt, and then there's inaction.
Cool. So, Charlie, I've never spoken to a UFC fighter before, but I'd really love to find out, especially given the fact that this wasn't your first career path. What goes through your head? Like, you've put in the training now, you've made the shift from classroom to cage. What's going through your head as you're walking up to the cage for that first fight?
So there's a couple things, and I'll say my first UFC fight because a first fight could be an amateur fight, it could be a low-level professional fight, but I'll say my first UFC fight. So there's a couple learning points here. The first is that I learned. You mentioned the preparation. I learned that self-confidence comes from preparation, and I prepare, and I'm not self-confident. Well, then you don't truly prepare. When you prepare to a level that that you truly believe, no one has prepared for this harder than I have, then that instills in you a sense of self-confidence that really is unshakable. So that's kind of the preface to it. The reality side of that is, on the way to the cage, I've had two experiences. I've had one experience where I am just on total autopilot, where there's I don't hear anything, I don't see anything. It is total focus, total like a heat sinking missile that is just focused on my opponent, and I just want to get in there and I want to get my hands on him. The other side of it, which is probably more common, to be honest, is on the way there, there's fans, there's like all this music, and the cameras are in your face, and the lights are shining, and then they shut the cage door. And I found myself thinking, nearly prior to every single fight, what in the heck have I done in my life to put me right here, right now? And then right when I get done thinking that, the ref looks at me, the ref looks at him and says, fight. And then that preparation, boom, it goes on auto drive, and for better or worse, it's history.
Yeah, and you're like, I actually chose to be in this game. Right?
Yeah. And then it's like, ready, fight, and then you just fight, and then that's that.
What kind of music did you listen to before a fight?
My I go through phases, and I have a unique taste for music. I'm not real lyric oriented. I just enjoy the beat. I enjoy anything that makes me feel good. So one of my favorite walkout songs was "Run This Town," and that was prior to one of my fights near my hometown. I loved coming out to "Small Town" by John Mellencamp, and then sometimes, honestly, on my headphones, I'd be listening to Roxette, or I'd be listening to Madonna, anything that just kind of made me feel good and forget what was about to happen.
And make sure the opponent doesn't hear you listening to Madonna.
That's why. That was on my headphones, not on the big music in the crowd.
Yeah. Now, Charlie, being a fighter, you must have been knocked down a few times and lost a couple of fights. So you're probably well positioned to answer this. But what are some of your sort of best tips for dealing with failure and for missing goals?
Yeah, the one is the nuts and bolts technique I use is, I'll tell you, but then also kind of the philosophical side of it. The nuts and bolts that I use, we would fight every couple months. Sometimes we'd fight, once every 2 months. Sometimes it'd be 5 or 6 months. And what I would do is, whether I won or I lost, I created a period of time. Normally for me, it was a week. For you, whomever, it could be a day, it could be an hour, it could be, a week, whatever makes sense in your situation. But I would allot that week to either like relish in my glory or relish in my pity. And then once that period of time was up, it was like, boom, clockwork. Okay, get back on the horse. So I didn't immediately, after a loss, I would not immediately try to feel good, because I felt like crap. I felt terrible. Like I just put months of work into this thing and I fell flat on my face. So it was natural to feel bad. So I embraced it, knowing that, all right, Charlie, you have 7 days to feel like a baby, pity yourself, be miserable. But at the end of that 7 days, you're going to get back up and move forward. And that's the actual technique that I used. Philosophically speaking, it took me, 25 years of an athletic career to realize that, goals, achievements are part of the process. And to be honest, it's the least important part of the process. It's important to set goals. I want to win. Trust me, I want to be the best in the world at whatever I do. But I'm mature and experienced enough to know that whether I am or whether I'm not isn't going to dictate how I feel about myself. Mm-hmm. How I feel about myself is the process and that preparation that I talked about earlier.
Mm. Yeah, and I've heard, I can't remember who said it originally, but it's the quote goes something like, it's better to set lofty goals and not reach them than set mediocre goals and hit them every time. So
exactly.
So Charlie, I know you also have a podcast going on and some other things that you do. Tell us a bit about A Fighter's Mindset and what it is you do there.
Yeah, so A Fighter's Mindset, there's a couple of branches of it, but one of them is a podcast. And, A Fighter's Mindset, I think back to how I lived as a professional fighter. And my vision for creating a fighter's mindset, the podcast, the course, the brand in general, was helping people apply those principles to life. Because when you're a professional fighter, the amount of discipline, the amount of sacrifice that your habits, your self-confidence, your manner of living, it's all on point and it's all primed to perform at your best. So I was thinking, well, how can I take all that stuff and apply it to everyday life? And the way that I'm doing that is through my podcast and through my course and through my speaking events and sharing, hey, this is what helped me in professional fighting, and this is how it can help you in your daily life. Because if we all operated on a daily basis like professional fighters training to be the champion of the world, I think we can all agree that we would be much better at what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'll definitely link that up in the show notes and send everyone over there and to your website as well. Charlie, I do want to be mindful of the time, but I've got some questions I want to sort of quick fire through at the end here. The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told in your 20s?
This is a good one, man. And I'm a self-reflector. I'm an introspector. I'm always thinking. I try not to go back too far in my life. I don't create regret. But if you would ask me what I wish I would have known in my 20s, or what I wish someone would have told me in my 20s, is just that: focus more on your preparation. Forget about the outcome. Forget about the achievement. Just bear down and focus on my preparation. Don't worry about other people's preparation.
How you show up every day.
Every single day, in everything you do. Another great saying is, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, man. Cool. Next one. What is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
Man, if podcasts isn't the answer to that question, it is. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might be, but I'll just keep it simple: podcasts, because there is so much information. I was going to say like social media, the internet, etc. But honestly, podcasts is the most condensed, efficient way of picking the minds of the most successful people in the world.
Yeah, man. And it's like, articles are great and videos are great, but you can listen to a podcast while you're commuting to work or going for a run or at the gym. It's just like you get to listen to these really amazing speakers for free whenever you want.
Yeah.
And if you had to sort of go to a speech by one of those speakers, okay, depending on the podcast, obviously, but you'd fork out, couple $100 or whatever it may be, a couple $1,000. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's awesome being able to absorb content in this way. Here's a bit of a meta question. If this had to become the most important podcast or audio clip for people in their 20s to hear, what do you think I would need to ask you, and how would you answer that?
So if this were, repeat that question one more time so I can fully absorb it.
So if this had to become the most important podcast for young people to hear, what would I need to ask you, and how would you answer that?
You would ask me, you would say, if you could pass on one word of wisdom or one strategy for the listeners to implement into their daily lives, to become, whether you want to say successful, to become excellent, to become great, I would respond to that question. And if you only took one thing from this podcast or interview today, remember to always surround yourself with the best. Surround yourself with the best, because that encompasses the things you watch on TV, the words that come out of your mouth, the words that you consume, the people that you are around. It's like the world is out there, and there's good and there's bad. And if you operate with the mindset of surrounding yourself with the best, it'll pay dividends in the end.
Yeah, and podcasts, again, is a great way to do that. Does it sound
Absolutely.
like...
In the quarter life comeback.
Does it sound like I'm plugging our podcast?
No, but if you were going to do that, you should probably listen to the quarter life comeback and a fighter.
Yeah. Surround yourself with the best. Charlie, I do have one more question, which you probably just touched on. But before I get to that, how can people get a hold of you if they want to find out more about what you're doing and on social media and all the rest of it? And, feel free to mention any courses or products or anything like that you've got going on.
For sure. My website, charlie-brenneman.com. You can just Google Spaniard UFC. I house everything there. I have all my social media links, which are Spaniard MMA across the board. So charlie-brenneman.com. And the way that you can consume my knowledge, experience, perspective is through my podcast, A Fighter's Mindset. I also have a course, A Fighter's Mindset. And something neat that I've been doing, I'm a very big proponent of reading, and I read on a daily basis. So if you don't have the time to read, but you want to gain the knowledge every morning, it varies from between 5:30 and 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I produce a 3 to 5 minute video of what I read that day. And you can follow them on social media, or if you sign up as part of my email list, I email them on a weekly basis. So you want to read, but you don't have the time, I got your back.
Nice. Is that on Snapchat or Facebook Live or Instagram?
Facebook. Well, I do it.
Cool.
I make the videos. I make the videos and then I upload them to. I do it on Periscope, and then I upload those videos across my social media platforms.
Cool. I'll be sure to link up all the good stuff that you mentioned there in the show notes, which will be at briantier.com/030. Charlie, before I get to the final question, I just want to take this time to acknowledge you for coming on today and for, listening to that voice that said to you, I want to be a fighter, and now helping other people set and work towards their own goals. And, you even said in the beginning of this interview, that's how you felt was your sort of service to others. The teaching, and now what you're doing now. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. And the final question, which I ask all guests, and if you feel like that your last answer covered this, then by all means mention it again. But what one thing can listeners do this week to start their own quarter life comeback?
So this is going to sound very silly. Drink a gallon of water a day. Drink a gallon of water a day. So what in the heck does that have to do with anything? Well, success, quarter life comeback, achieving anything great is a direct result of your habits. And drinking a gallon of water a day, health wise, it's proven. And also, I'm not a doctor, so consult with your doctor before you do this. That's what I do. It's a keystone habit. And, not I challenge, but I encourage you too, Brian, try it, because what you're going to find is day one, you'll get like half of it in and you'll think, okay. And then you'll be like, oh, this is kind of annoying. And then you'll stop doing it. And then what that's going to teach you is, wait a minute, if I can't do the simplest of habits, then how am I going to do these habits that are going to make me great? So get a water bottle, drink a gallon or whatever amount of water your doctor recommends, and do it on a daily basis. And that forming of a habit will have a ripple effect outwards.
Yeah, I used to be a personal trainer, so I can vouch for all the health stuff as well. So I dig it, man. Charlie Brenneman, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback today. I had a lot of fun.
My pleasure, Brian. I did too, man. I really did.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up this week's episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 30. And a big thanks once again to Charlie Brenneman for coming on the show and sharing his awesome story with each one of us today. If you like this episode, make sure you share it around on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier and let me know what some of your biggest takeaways were. For me, there were two things. The first is that, even fighters get those self-doubt and fear sort of mindsets before big fights or big goals. And the other one was, when you are chasing a big goal and working towards something bigger than you, just take the first small step and keep working from there. I've said it on previous episodes and I'm going to continue to say it. Just find that first small thing and work from there. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/030, and make sure you subscribe at quarterlifecomeback.com to get all these episodes as soon as they go live. It's been great spending time with you this week, and until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.